And so it begins.
Shall we begin?
So it begins. And now it begins.
So it begins.
And so it begins.
And so it begins.
Shall we begin?
Shall we begin?
And so it begins. And so it begins. And so it begins.
So, shall we begin?
So, it begins.
Shall we begin? Shall I begin?
Shall we begin?
Shall we begin? Shall we begin?
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Fandom Collective Nerd Blast. Here, I got my guest with me, my buddy Script Doctor. It's been a while, but what's going on, man? What is up?
Oh, not too much. Just after that awesome intro, I realized, man, Hollywood has a lot of derivative writing.
Yeah, dude, no, I got to add more. I watched Andor recently, and there's a part where Deidre, the evil Empire chick, she's like, "Shall we begin?" I'm like, "That's another one. That's another one." Just like again, but it's a good line. It kind of like depending on who says it in the context, it can resonate. It's like, oh shoot, they just said it's time to get it going. Damn, all right, let's go. Crixus, I think, made it into the best war cry though. With that, I would say, that's just his cry. Shall we begin?
Yeah.
Can we? Okay, you good? No? Okay, good. Yeah, let's go. But
I mean,
yeah.
I'm just wondering, like, next one will be "Let's get it started," and then it just goes to, like, I think it was Black Eyed Peas,
Oh yeah, yep. Yeah. It's funny. Well, I think about these like common quotes and tropes that I see all the time, and I just start sometimes compiling them here and there. And this one accidentally just got really big, and there's still more I need to add to it again. So just like Jesus, like I'm only going based on what I've seen and what I know of, and I haven't seen a lot, as you know. So like that's with my minimum amount that I've seen. That's already a lot.
I'm gonna say this: keep on building it, and then when you think you're done, send it to me. And when I go to LA and I go into a pitch, I'll be like, "You guys need to hire better people," and then I just can play that video of all the times everyone says, "Shall we begin?" or "Now it begins," and the variations.
Yeah,
and just be like, "Yeah, you're letting this pass. That's you. Yeah. That's on you guys."
Another one I want to do is when people say to like enhance and stuff on things. I always like, that's a cool feature. How do you ever do that? And they just blurry ass photo enhance. I think I've seen some people discuss that too, or like that is a huge thing. And they compiled a few things, and I'm like, oh, those are ones I wasn't even thinking of. I was thinking of these 4 other things that have the same kind of line where they can just do that or something.
Mm-hmm.
Those are funny though. But real quick, so I've got a lot of different stuff on my mind lately with stuff. I've been busy, Script. I've been watching stuff. I haven't been as active on YouTube this year, like entirely. Like I've got videos I'm supposed to make, but I just haven't made a bunch of them yet. I've been doing short film stuff too, trying to get back.
Congratulations, man! I love the trailer for your super speedster.
Yes, the fat speedster. Yes,
Speedster.
I wish I had a better name for the title, but I feel like that sells itself too. So it's kind of like, okay,
I think that works. But yeah, there's definitely some exploration when it comes to say heaviness and like it feels like you have the intermittent fasting. There's something they can do there, like a play on that for like the next, like a follow up to the fat speedster.
No, well, it's funny. So like I plan on losing at least 30 pounds before the next installment of it, pretty much. So that's gonna be part of the character too, as well. Like it's like some of it is based on me, but it's an exaggerated version of myself where it's like, he's jobless, kind of lazy and stuff. I always like to work. It's like I can't just be jobless. I gotta work,
Yeah.
But like it's like the idea, like it's just funny where it's like, what if somebody who's fat got super speed? And I think I've seen this idea explored in other things, but they usually just kind of lose the weight really quick. And the way I kind of see it, I'm like, no, you can run faster now, but you're still fat and tired. You'll just get to where you would get faster. You'd be you'd be out of breath.
So
it's gonna be
the metabolism doesn't connect to the speed. I like that. That's a good job.
You're gonna have to do a little bit more work on that. And then if you like are trying to eat different foods, like if you're trying to eat healthy, but you need to have more like calories or more protein and stuff, well, Now, like the way you would diet is going to be different, probably, like what you would try to change than even a normal one. So, like, I just took that concept and just like I made something actually 2 years ago with the concept, but it was just like throw together with whatever. And then later I like sat on it and thought about it just for fun. Again, I was like, okay, getting some more ideas. And then I made it 5 episodes total, 74 minutes between the 5 episodes total.
Wow.
So I was aiming for under an hour and a half total runtime. So it's good to just get over an hour pretty much, because making it lengthy is what I tend to do. The Rookie's Quest was over 3 hours long total.
I remember.
Yes. So trying to remember from that and keep it a little shorter, keep it more condensed and whatnot. Try to keep substance. The more I learn about writing and like good dialogue and not wasting time, it's difficult for me because I'm still learning in general how to get the basic stuff down. But I keep that in mind so often. I'm like, is what I'm showing worth it? Is this important, or can it be dropped? Like, that's always on my head.
Yeah. You got to prioritize things. It's what does the audience need to know, and what do I want them to know? And those are sometimes two different things.
Yeah, I've gone into that thing now where I write a whole version of it, and then I'm just kind of like, nope, can't do that. Nope, not going to do that. and then with this one too, like, I don't know, like if you've ever gotten into this process, or if you've like tried filming something yourself too and editing it or something. I know you've done editing with stuff, but like when I filmed a couple of the scenes, I was like, okay, I was trying to find music for it. And then I was just realizing like, well, if I were moving in certain ways in the shot or in the scene, then it could match better with the music, and that would look visually better with what you're hearing. And so I reshot the whole scene, trying to like find, trying to like match it better to the music, and then finding sound effects to throw in there too. There wasn't going to be any sound effects, but I'm like, well, there's certain points where there should be some noise that you hear. So trying to like add in some of the noises and stuff. And then like I didn't do that for the whole 74 minutes, but I'm gonna take that going forward next time to try to like be aware of what music I want to put, and like to add. It'll help me actually shoot the scenes better, because I don't have a cameraman usually, so I have to I have to set up the scene myself and where I want to cut it to and whatnot. But yeah, it's a fun learning one this time, so it's pretty fun. But yeah, I've been busy watching some films, dude. So I only saw Indiana Jones the first time like when I was a kid, and I thought they were kind of lame when I was a kid.
Blasphemy.
I know, right? But I just rewatched them. Black Angus Reviews, and he'll like make me watch stuff here and there, and I'm glad that he does, because it kind of forces me to actually sit down and watch something. And I freaking love the trilogy, man. Like Indiana Jones, like I thought The Last Crusade is like a little more bombastic. With there's like it's like 10 explosions, but it's hilarious. And the first one's just got great pacing, great character stuff. Second one even not as annoying as I remember. The chick that screams all the time, it's a little annoying.
Oh yeah, Willie.
But it makes sense why she is that way, though. She's a fancy girl, and she's very and like in this part of the world with voodoo crap, and she's totally out of her element, completely.
Very much out of her element. Her worst scene is when Indiana Jones is fighting the guy on the conveyor, and she's on the ground and she's miming the fight, and it just reminds me of like the Little Rascals when they're trying to mime fighting, and it's like it's really it looks very infantile.
Yes.
And it's just like, that is cringe. But it's trying to beef up the fact that Indiana Jones is on the heroic side of things in this.
Yes. Yes. I was like, even Short Round, I thought he was going to be like just a stupid little character, but I'm like, no, this is actually kind of funny. I like it, these okie dokie, smoky pokey, Dr. Jones, let's go. I'm driving. It's just like, okay.
And he's really charming kid, and he's the only one that is allowed to wear Indy's hat that isn't Indy.
Yeah, I think that would make sense too. As I'm watching it, I'm like, oh, he could probably be in the freaking current ones. Oh, they don't do that, do they? Nope. Okay, I did not see the newest one, so I don't know.
He won an Oscar recently, and
he was in that multiverse movie, right?
Yes, Everything Everywhere All at Once. And if I was at Disney, I'd be kicking myself in the head, saying, why didn't we get him back for Dial of Destiny? We brought back Marion for Crystal Skull, sure, not critically acclaimed, great. but made a whole lot of money. And I think if we brought those two guys back together, we probably might have done the same. You know?
Yeah, it's like, how come they don't want to do any like wholesome endings to a story anymore? They seem to always want to have it be where like, oh, their life sucks now, everything's lame, and this is their last attempt. They get dragged into a thing, and then it just they die or something.
Well, when you're starting a movie, you typically don't want to introduce your characters in a world of too much comfort.
Of course, there's got to be something's a little bit wrong. Sure, like I can totally get that, but
that feeds into like the main character's wants and desires and what motivates them. Like with Indiana Jones, he really wanted that idol in the first one.
Yes,
and he fails. And when he goes back to school, he's doing his job. But as soon as he's talking to Marcus, he's like, "This is the only place where you can sell it. Give me some money. Give me a plane ticket. I can go get it." But he's like, "Hold on, Indy. There's these men from the government that need to talk to you." And now he's taken on another side quest that's now the dominance of the movie, and it distracts him from what he wants. But because it's dealing with an old mentor that we've never seen before, but that we get a very well crafted scene of exposition about what's going on and what the rules of this universe are. We are totally bought into it, hook, line, and sinker. And now we're just like, oh, they're looking for the Ark. First, you got to find his old girlfriend, which is probably how he and his mentor had a falling out. Now she's because her bar's been destroyed. She's tagging along, and now they're going all over the world just trying to find where this is. And when they do find it, it's not what they expect it to be. And they got out there by the skin of their teeth because of the hubris of, the enemy. And then in the end, what happens? Well, the thing is cataloged away. Nobody realizes the power that it holds. And Indiana Jones has lost again in regards to the artifact. But what he's gained as a result is, he's got Marion by his side. And it's like, that looks like it could be a happy ending. And then, and it was like, okay, that's all wrapped up. It's quite good, quite satisfying, quite entertaining. And then you get the very first prequel in a Lucasfilm franchise, which is the Temple of Doom. Takes place a year before. And you see him with Short Round. You see him with Willie. He's in Club Obi-Wan. Very Bondy type prologue. This one, though, different to the Raiders and Last Crusade, this one starts off kind of at breakneck speed. Like there's no pause. It's he wants the diamond. He loses the diamond, has to get away, and in his efforts to get away, he is stranded in somewhere in India.
Yeah, they got on a plane. The pilots abandoned it. They have to abandon it. They don't have transportation, so they go to the nearest place, and they can't just leave. They're told they have to go somewhere to do something for them. So,
yep. And it's slightly different. There's no respite in between. It's just beep, 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 going. And then having him like sort of lose control of his mind for a little bit. Like that's their main guy. There's just the kid and the girl, and she's then you have the thing. So Short Round saves the day a little right there. Short Round's rescue. There's something missing there because I've seen it on my digital. I watched it on my VHS, my Blu-ray. Indiana Jones is lowering Willie into the pit, and then all of a sudden there's a weird cut, and Short Round has already knocked out two guys or something of that nature, and then he grabs the torch to burn Indy to try and break him out of it. And you're like, well, wait a minute, what happened? Where's he runs up, and then all of a sudden he's like, we cut to Billy, and then all of a sudden he's kicked two guys in the groin, and he's trying to rescue Indy. He's like, wait, why didn't we see that? What's going on?
I imagine it looked silly, so they just kind of cut away from it. But I don't know if they had sound effect there or not.
It was very jarring, and a couple of times that happens, and I think that's one of the reasons why, for a very long time, Temple of Doom was considered like the lesser of the three.
Yeah. I mean, I still think it kind of is, but that's saying it's still high quality, though. It's like it's not bad quality. It's just a lower quality compared to the other two. And like the Last Crusade, I mean, that one's just hilarious timing. Like I can't believe it's so funny as shit. I just, so many things caught me off guard. It's like, they go into the cave and the plane's just there, and it Just the humor is subtle. It's not, I don't know, it's not the humor I've seen a lot as of late. And it's just the plane and the pilot are just going by them in the car. And then it just explodes out front. And he's like, oh, that one was pretty close. And then like another bomb drops like right in front of him. It's just like, that was surprisingly hilarious timing. Like throws the Nazi out, no ticket.
And
Here's
then
tickets.
and,
Okay, here you go.
and we see Sean Connery in a performance that is absolutely brilliant and charming and completely out of any character we've seen him play before, where he's incredibly knowledgeable, smart. He's a father that really loves his son, but at the same time, he's also got standards for him.
Yep.
And I can't think of any other performance that Sean Connery has done that has that much depth and care to it.
He can get it with the ladies too, the same one that his son also got with. But that was also hilarious too, kind of.
Yeah, but enemy spies.
Like, oh no, they both hit the chick.
Lady enemy spies sleep with everybody. That's what they're there to do.
Yes, like that was just nice and good, and so that was a refreshing trilogy. A little, it's a very different tone than I guess I've seen in a while from a lot of my stuff that I've been watching. So that's good. I watched Game of Thrones all the way now. Finally, finished Game of Thrones. It was like slow for me to fully get into wanting to binge it, but after a certain point, I'm like, I kind of just want to see the whole season. So I'm like binging it a lot and finished that. I finished it a couple months ago when I did, and like I only got revigorized to watch it after watching House of Dragon. There was a point where I was watching Game of Thrones, but it was starting to like it was still fine, but I wasn't as into it as I maybe should have been. And then I watched House of Dragons, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is amazing!" And then I'm like, "Okay, I didn't watch Game of Thrones all the way yet. I think I stopped like at, part like at the beginning of season 4 or something around there." And so then I come back to that and was seeing how that played out. And there's some things in the seasons, like the season 5 and on, where there's a lot more like little questionable stuff that happens, but still a lot of good quality though. Like overall. Like even in season 8, like season 8 episode 2, I think was a pretty good one. Like the night before the war or before the awful madness begins of that season, for the most part. Just like nice chill. They're like talking in front of a campfire and just like talking about. They're sitting and talking, and it's just like that's just how do they make that good, like that entertaining. I like that.
It's not just dialogue, but it's also what each character is trying to accomplish in those types of scenes.
Yes. That's not just as simple as they're just talking. There's the characters, going for certain things, trying to a lot of good stuff there. And I enjoy seeing that. And so that's what makes it frustrating when I try to write my own stuff. Cause I'm like, how can I have that kind of depth? Like that's tough to get there. One day
you got to get into the heads of your characters. You have to. I mean, this comes down to like proper planning. When you're writing a story, you want to know not just what your main character wants, but what the antagonist wants, what the supporting characters want, and you have to play around with those relationships in ways that might make you a little uncomfortable. Not in the sense of the subject matter, but just in the sense of like how deep you're going to explore this.
Right.
So if you're doing a love story, it can't just be two people that fall in love and they want to be together, which a lot of people think that is what something like Romeo and Juliet is about. Is like, okay, no, these two people love each other. They want to be together, but their families are at war with each other. They can't be. There is that obstacle. It's like Juliet's parents want to kill Romeo and his family, and Romeo's parents want to kill Juliet's family. Yeah, that's conflict. That's the thing they have to deal with.
Yeah, the conflict can in a way prevent the thing you want to have happen from happening, but that's still their goal until something's resolved.
And then you have the other one. You have like say the unrequited suitor, so or suitress, if you want to go that way, where one character is in love with another and the other character doesn't notice them or pay attention to them or doesn't view them in that way. So it's unrequited love. And that's the conflict. And if you make the character that you're following very empathetic to that, you're rooting for them to, break that shell so that those two can actually, be together. Then there's the other part where you have another unrequited love, where one person is so distracted with this other person as the object of their affection that they are ignoring someone that is absolutely perfect for them, to the right, so to speak.
Or like they'll in like that's a common thing in TV shows that I see where like the friend will even help them often try to get with the person that they want to be with. And then it's like, but in doing that, they end up having a lot more bonding and experiences that obviously pit them as a match for each other that like later will end up sprouting, which is funny because that tends to lead to when they do have them together, they don't know what to do anymore because the conflict's over, right?
Well, that's part of that's where you get your happy ending of the story, is that once you get them together, that is mission accomplished. It's not about their life together after that. That's a whole new set of conflicts. It's about the conflict of just finding that person, and it's one of the most commonly accessible stories out there, because being vulnerable and giving your heart over to somebody emotionally is a very emotionally dangerous situation, because there's the rejection, and then you're like, well, if that person rejects me, then I've got to start looking for another person, and it took me however long to find this one. How long is it it's going to be compounded with every attempt and failure. So yeah, it's very, there's a lot of tension there, and it's a lot of fun. It's why those types of stories last. One of the greatest types of love story in fiction and in action is Clark Kent and Lois Lane. Clark Kent is smitten with Lois, and Lois, she's taken with the Superman as the ideal, and it takes her a long time to kind of realize that Clark Kent is the man that she actually really cares about and likes more. Clark Kent is more real. And then when she falls for him, and then later learns that Clark Kent and Superman are one the same, it's like a bonus. It's like, that's what it is. But the other part too, and credit to a lot of the writers, whether it's in the TV or in the comic books that did this, is that once Lois Lane knows Clark is Superman, she still only thinks of him and sees him as Clark first.
Right. Because
that's who she loves. The fact Superman is always going to be a job. This is a job for Superman. That is literally part it is. Clark Kent is not Superman. Clark Kent goes to work as Superman, so to speak. It's a very complex thing.
That's what Clark's saying, right?
Yeah, but that's what it is. But it's a very it's a great model with regards to a love story for that character.
Yeah,
that if you want to kind of understand the journey of people falling in love, it comes at the expense of conflict. It doesn't come from them just love at first sight. Now we have to get them together and have have some sort of third party coming in between them.
I guess
sometimes need each other to butt heads.
Yeah, well, I mean, what I find weird with how they end up doing the scenarios all the time, where like, oh, they broke up in between the movies or something. It's like, well, they could still be together and just not have the love. See, to me, the love part, the falling in love and whatever, that the battle for the love is done, like you said, like that part's done. So if there's anything that's going to happen in the story with whatever, that shouldn't be the focus. Like they're already together now. So
yes,
what is the problem they're going to deal with
that
going
doesn't
forward?
Reset them to where they were when we first saw the characters. That's usually the better thing. It's like, okay, they're together now. What's the new conflict?
Yeah, have them butt heads, but they don't have to
maybe
be. They don't have to be gone again.
Yeah, like maybe they're expecting their first child, and they have different ways to want to approach it, or maybe their in-laws are coming to visit, and it's like, oh great, we got to deal with these people. Like, and then you have the concerns of, are we going to turn into the bickering couples that we came from?
I'm thinking of like National Treasure, where like they had them break up, and then in the second one, and I was like, you did not need to do that at all. You could have been together and then on your mission here and bicker and have your things here or something, have your conflicts, your differences brought out on the field together, like rather than it being like, oh, we gave up. I'm like, this was because you're together now anyway. We're not even seeing when you were apart. This is stupid
because they're together now anyway, and you're just rebuilding the relationship that they already built in the first movie. So you're retreading on old content.
It's like, I don't understand why that's always a thing that happens. I
think it would have been funnier if the reason they split is because Nick Cage's character shaved his sideburns and looked ridiculous. It's like, you keep your hair like that. You shave your sideburns every week. You just look ridiculous. I can't look at you. Get out.
Yeah, it's like she does a pretend divorce every now and then whenever I get my hair cut. So just give it a week or two, and then she'll be back. It's all good, bro.
It's like, I'm just gonna grow a beard. I'll leave everything out, and she'll be fine.
But like,
you don't want to that's one of the things when it comes to long form storytelling, when you're doing franchises, is you don't want to retread the
same
journey too
lessons and
closely to the
journey.
same thing over. Like with James Bond, you're retreading a lot of stuff there. Okay, he's got to find the bad guy. He's got to challenge the bad guy. He has a dinner with the bad guy where there's exposition. Then he gets captured. Then he gets away. Then he stops the bad guy. Then he beds the woman.
Yeah.
Like that's the general formula, but they have fun with it to make it not feel stale. When you start repeating beat for beat something that has happened previously, you are now providing not a service to your customers. You're basically relying on a literal formula as opposed to the abstract formula.
Right.
So
Yeah.
National Treasure does that. The Force Awakens does that egregiously.
I
with-
feel like that's the most common thing is that they've broken up between the last time we
Between
saw them
movies
and all
and-
the time.
They went from victory to failure, and it's like, well, how did that happen? It's like,
Yeah,
it
it's
just
like,
did.
oh, I'm down in the dump. It's like when there's like second act low points or something, and they like
Mhm.
need to have a scene. Just the Suicide Squad scene's the perfect one.
Mhm.
He's got to be angry for some reason. I don't know. He kept letters or something. Okay, and so now they're gonna go have a drink, and I don't know. This is when they're sad, and then they're gonna build up again. I feel like that kind of thing is forced all the time with like the same. type
Between
of thing, with different
Deadshot and Harley
stories and-
Quinn, that type of thing going on.
Sort of like they
Yeah,
just
because they're in the
not even
bar.
not even in regards to love, just in regards to this is a point that we need to have in the film, and
Yeah.
we have no clue how to have a low point now. So
We
here's just
didn't
what's
get
happening
there
now.
yet, so now we're just gonna have it. And
Or like an Aquaman, like whenever they need to have a moment interrupted, there's an explosion, and it's just
Yeah.
like, what? Like,
in television, the trope they have a quick scene of exposition, and then it gets interrupted with a cell phone call.
yes,
They pick it up or they get a text and like, oh, we got to go here. It's like, way to terribly write your way out of that.
I hate those. That's another trope that I'm keeping track of now, pretty much. Like the like, God, it's like in the show Castle alone. I love that show, but
Oh,
like,
yeah.
cut
They
the
rely on
cell
that
phones
heavily.
are like just I have a call. It's just like fuck, stop answering the phone. Like just leave it alone. Like there's some other ones I've watched. I'm sure I'd seen so many different ones lately to like just pinpoint all of them. But I mean, yeah,
Everything on
they
CW.
just have CW everything. But that one's even more mind. I feel like they can only recreate the same things they do. They never like there's got to be like some gala event. There's some party. There's just some bank that's going to be robbed. There's like the same five things that
warehouses.
happen, and there's a phone call, right? And then somebody got captured, and then it's like I don't know why. Like that's what's disappointing because I think they could have, if they had a plan to have a limited amount of them. Like there's only going to be 5 seasons of Arrow. There's only going to be 3 seasons of Flash or something. A few seasons of these. You could maybe have all these different scenarios without them being like completely tropey, but. I don't know. But those ones had like 20 episodes a season, right? Those were like the long form show.
Yeah, well, 20-hour longs, a traditional model. It's basically taking the Dawson's Creek approach and then applying it to superheroes, which was kind of pioneered by Al Gough and Miles Miller, or Al Gough. I've heard so many people tell differently, say his name differently. And yeah, they released a monster on the world of quality, and I would say they are accidentally one of the architects as to why Warner Brothers has been so terrible at handling their superheroes for the last, I would say, 22 years, because Smallville came out in 2001. I know it has a lot of fans, but there's a podcast of the two leads rewatching that show, or technically watching it for the very first time, and yeah, they're being very diplomatic with how they like the show, because they Michael Rosenbaum, the guy who plays Lex Luthor, you can tell he wants to like the show, but he can't.
Right. Yeah.
And he's trying his best to not annoy his fans, because he really does appreciate his fans.
Yeah.
But he has seen the forest for the trees. He's like, this is not good, and he's coming up with a lot of diplomatic excuses, like, well, it's really hard to write 22 great episodes a year.
Oh, right. That's a way to put it. Sure. Yes.
It's like, yeah,
we'll
but
it.
Michael, you have a writer's room, usually between, on a show like this, at least at that time, it was like 6 to 12 writers. They each get like 2 to 3 episodes they work on for that season, which means they should be giving their A game. It's really those sets of writers writing 3 episodes. It's like if you've got, a year, because technically you do, because you've got many weeks to write, because you have to write to schedule. So you write a few weeks. You spend about 6 weeks writing an episode before it actually goes into production, and that kind of gets you get assigned that. And sometimes people who are lucky get assigned like, oh, your first episode is going to be episode 6. So you have from the time the writer's room starts to the time to go through all of those other scripts before they get to you. So you have all that time up between to make that the best episode. And then you get your next assignment and it goes into a cycle. And it's like the reason they do it in that model is to statistically make it more likely that every episode is going to be really, really good. Not going to be the fantastic, but really good. But with Smallville, it looks basically like a heart monitor. It has its peaks and it has its huge dips and its peaks and its huge dips in it.
How many seasons did that show go for?
It went on for 10.
Wow.
And it was only supposed to be for 4 seasons. And I remember that because by the time I got to Hollywood myself, we were all like a lot of the interns and stuff, we were all flabbergasted to hear, oh, they're making Smallville they're going to for 7 seasons now. And the people who are telling us this, who are executives who've been in the industry for decades longer than I have, were saying like, yeah, this show is only pitched for 4 seasons, supposed to be the high school years of Clark, but they're able to sell it internationally for way more than what the show's actually worth. It's able to pay for itself and then other productions. So they're going to keep milking that show as long as they can to get that money because people internationally are paying top dollar for it. And that show ended up going on for 10 years.
Wow.
And it ran out of gas, I would say, early in season 3. Just
wow. That sounds like the kind of show that would have benefited if it stopped, at a certain point before that. Yeah, maybe season 6 or something, let's just say. And then like if it had a good gap, like how like Karate Kid and Cobra Kai did, and if they have some of the cast around and want to have like a season or 2 of just he's grown up a bit more, he's Superman, you want to do a few things, something like that could be interesting. But I don't know if did they think that far ahead back then? Like with
no,
things mostly,
oh god, they don't even think that far ahead now.
Like, which I don't blame them for not thinking that far ahead, honestly, because it sounds
I'll
like hell
put you
to
this way.
do that.
Miles Goff and Alfred Miller and Miles Goff, or Al Goff and Miles Miller. Keep getting those names. They're one person essentially. They had a plan, which is that they were going to do the high school years, and they weren't going to make Clark fly, and they weren't going to show the suit. But as they got renewed, extended beyond their initial 4-year plan, it's like, well, now we're just narrowing down what we can do with this character. And then they end up having to introduce Green Arrow and then Aquaman and then the Flash. And they're introducing all these other superheroes to do superhero stuff because they can't do it with Clark.
What else can he do now? He's already Superman and we can't have him do that. So
they explored every single one of his powers except for flight, and they held it off as long as they could. And
I got to give him credit for that at least, because that seems like
it's very contrived.
People,
ways
come on, let's have him fly. He's Superman. Let's go. It's like no.
They had to bring in Lois Lane in season 4 because they didn't know what to do.
Like, does he have any other girlfriends? Nope, just Lois Lane.
Well, they had Lana Lang, who is again the other part too is all the adults in that show were cast perfectly. The kids sucked.
Which is unfortunate if that's the focus for the most part.
Tom Welling, he was a model, kind of getting into acting. He knew he was very well aware he was not an actor. Even in the commentary of his own show, he talks about how he's not an actor; he's just learning. Yeah. And then you got Kristen Crook, who she's from Degrassi. She was doing a lot of Canadian shows. She works a lot, but she was a pretty face who is not the best actress. However, she is very, very well read and intelligent. And it goes back to an old Truman Capote joke about how the most intelligent actors are not very good. And she kind of fits into that because she's done a lot of weird shows. She does like Smallville. She did Degrassi. She did Beauty and the Beast. I think she did a couple of other detective shows. Okay. And it's
like the modern Beauty and the Beast show.
She did a modern Beauty of the Beast where the Beast is still a really hot guy, just no hair, no fur, nothing of that.
Right.
Yeah. it's so stupid.
Like
stuff.
Nathan Fillion with a little Harry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And she's like a New York cop, but when you go into her apartment, and she lives on Manhattan Island, but when she goes into her apartment, that's apparently a New York cop could afford. It's a freaking giant set of lofts connected with solid walls, and you're like,
Yeah, they
that is
tend to
way
do
too
that,
big
don't
to
they?
be, to be off of 22nd and 3rd Avenue. It's like,
it's just my poor salary I can afford with this like house
This-
this loft
this
that can
living
fill a
room-
village.
this living room that could fit 50 people comfortably next to a kitchen that could fit 30.
I would give the refugees my room, but I don't know. I feel a little spacey
Yeah.
today. No. Real quick, CJH in the chat. What's up, man? I did
Hey.
not see the alien hearings, UFO things, so I don't know.
I've
I
only
don't know what
seen
to believe
clips.
with people anymore, so I don't know.
I've only seen clips. So I'm fascinated by it, but at the same time, it's like, why are they bringing this up now of all
Yeah,
times?
what do
Like,
they
what's-
want to distract us from now? Like,
Yeah, just like
that's the
you know,
idea. Yeah.
gotta
I'm-
gotta. You know what? I would say give it a look, but then start looking around it as well. It's like, what else is going on? What's happening right now? Why is this? And it's
Focus.
also not getting as much media attention as you'd expect too, which is also kind of fascinating.
Yeah, well, I feel like it's one of those things where if there was an alien spaceship to land in the center of New York or New York City, and they come out and people get to touch the aliens, it's all videotaped. I mean, a lot of people, including myself, would probably be like, "You expect me to believe that that's an alien spacecraft and an alien's right there, like interacting with those people?" No.
Yeah. Here's the
Like,
other thing.
I don't know. Like,
Here's the other thing. I would not believe for a second that aliens would choose any of the countries in North or South America to land in, just because of the amount of unrest and craziness that we're experiencing. As frightening as it sounds, even though there is a war overseas, it's more likely that they'd go to Russia, just because even though there's a war on the front lines, there seems to be a lot more control over that society with that
Right.
structure. And it's like, oh wait, looks like this portion of the people seem to know what's going down. Let's go talk to them.
right, where can we land where we're likely to have a conversation rather than everybody getting rioting over this stuff? Okay.
And I think it would take them a while to kind of realize, oh wait, what's going on over here? Everybody's terrified of everything, but they're not standing up for own agency, or who knows what's going on. It's very, I mean, yes, I wouldn't know. Like being human myself, I can't objectively look at the planet and be like, okay, what if I was going to land, where would I go, and who would be the best sort of people to talk to? It's like maybe Spain. How's Spain?
Like, definitely
doing?
not Australia. Just
Not
because
Australia,
the terrain.
not-
No,
Definitely
sorry,
not
no.
Canada or the United States. I mean, it took
Yeah.
39 years for the Republicans to realize Mitch McConnell is brain dead. So yeah, and it's like, well, definitely not Mexico. Poor the people there are greatly oppressed. and
That's when they'd go, oh, let's just skip Earth. Let's just go.
there's
to
a
another
lot of
next
civil
planet.
unrest in
Go
South
to another
America.
planet first. This planet's not worth it. Let's just go
Africa's
somewhere else.
always been a mess to some degree.
Yeah, they'd be like,
So
we'd be
is
gods,
Europe.
or
Europe's
we'd be
been kinda
gods
pretty
to them,
crazy.
and they wouldn't. Okay, they wouldn't know what they're looking at. Okay,
Yeah,
let's
we
go
could go to
North-
UK, but it looks like one of us is already there, and he's called King Charles III. So
let's go to North Sentinel Island. You know that one?
yeah,
The-
like it's like, where would they go? Where would
Let's
they
go to the
go?
most primitive people on the planet, the North Sentinelese, and maybe let's see if they have any reason. Let's
Yeah,
see.
let's
Guys
see.
who can't even
What-
do
what are their
fire yet.
thoughts with what's going on?
They'd be like, nope, they shoot arrows at them. They'd be like, yeah, you're gonna bring sickness down here.
Yeah, that's always a possibility. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, so yeah, I'm not gonna look into it too much. But he says, yeah, project the blue beam and demons. Yeah, I mean,
Oh, Project Bluebeam. That's a hoax to exploit that alien life on Earth. Yeah.
yep, possibly. Yeah, it's like, I don't know. Like that's the thing. I can't. I don't know what to believe anymore. I'm really at that state with things, unfortunately, where it's like, you can tell me this or even show me this, and I don't know, man. Okay,
Well,
it's
I
gotta
mean,
be
there's-
gotta be really, really hard to find for me to be like, okay, that's real.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, I think it's fair to have scrutiny over things, and a little bit of doubt, because you want to find something authentic. I mean, that's one of the things you have to have as an eye as a filmmaker. Is you're using your observations about the world to help inform the way you're going to tell a certain narrative. of your story, whatever it is, whether it's your, the fat speedster. It's like you're
Yeah.
taking things of your own experiences and using them to create the context of this story about a heavy guy that has gotten super speed, and he also doesn't lose weight as a result of it.
Yeah.
So like there's a charm to it. There's something funny, but you're probably going to be telling that story by revisiting experiences that you have had or experiences that you have heard of that feel authentic to the premise of your story.
Yeah.
That's
Exactly.
what you got to do. And you should be doing the same thing with news and other stories within your purview.
Exactly. Well, I mean, when the spy balloon was around, it's like, well, I go like, okay, so there's like 5 things that could be, I guess. They say it's a spy balloon from Chinese or something. It's like, all right, that's one option. Sure.
Yep.
Could it be one of our stupid things that just got loose and I don't know, they're being dumb about it? I don't know. Sure. Could it be something from aliens? I doubt it'd be that low tech, but who knows? Maybe they feel like pulling out the cheap shit. I don't know. Could be Jimbo built a giant balloon device. I don't know. Like
giant balloon device, and it
I
just got
don't
away
know.
from him. He's like, someone will find it.
Yeah, just somebody built like a tank and and ran that through a town one time. I could believe somebody compiles enough stuff, engineering skills, and makes something. I don't know, freaks people out. I don't know. Could be anything, but shifting from that though, as fun as the alien topic is, I do like discussing potential alien stuff, mostly on other planets for the possibility of like how they live or what they might look like and stuff. I think it's fun. At one point I wanted to try astrobiology, but then I looked at all the qualifications for that, and that's 4 fields I would need to master to be in that field: geography, astronomy, biology, and
Chemistry, I think.
Chemistry, and so I'm like, nope, that's too much. I'll look into it as a hobby. that's what I'll do.
Yeah, because you have to be able to identify. You have to have an eye to identify foreign elements that are unrecognizable to Earth. I mean, that's the question, right? With astrobiology or xenobiology. Is like you're trying to figure out what is this cell that we have never seen before, and how does it work, and how does it function?
Exactly. Well, I mean, it's the kind of thing that has me question, like, could there be life forms that exist like in our solar system in areas that we just don't recognize right now because of how what we compare to right now? Could there be life forms in the freaking sun? For all we know, I mean, I think,
I mean, again,
I feel like it's one of Stephen Hawking's documentaries that it got me into that. And then there's the Alien Planet movie. If you haven't seen that, I really like that little documentary where they show going to the Darwin 4 and
I would say Cosmos with Carl Sagan is something that you should check out if you love those types of things. PBS series.
I feel like I've seen a couple. Maybe I feel like when it was on, I've seen some of the seasons, but
he was one of the better
the universe or how the universe works. One of those.
Well, he was one of the better scientists because he challenged a lot of preconceived notions, and as revered as someone like Einstein is, because of his theories and because of so many scientists not trying to challenge them with as much scrutiny as you'd otherwise would, physics has not really expanded or grown as a science in decades. And one of the things that's very, very prevalent to science and something that you can also apply to writing and storytelling is that you are, as a species right now, it's very foolish to say there are certain rules of something that cannot happen with absolute certainty. With science, it's we have yet to discover anything that we can observe to prove otherwise. So you have the speed
100%.
limits. You have the universal speed limit saying nothing travels faster than the speed of light. Well, hold on there. Nothing we have yet to observe travels faster than the speed
of light. With our own solar system. When we first were starting to look into other like star systems and stuff, we thought that there'd be the rocky planets and the rocky planets closer to the sun, and then the gas giants further away. But it's the entire opposite, where we're like one of the odd mans out and having rockier planets, more solid planets closer to the sun. The rest are mostly gas giants around the star, and then maybe some that could potentially be in a habitable zone where they could maybe be solid and have life and stuff. But like that stuff alone. I mean, so they learned a lot just from that. And that's just that was from the Kepler, and they just point of that in one area in space, looking for habitable, or for looking for sun-like
Looking for what's called the
stars
Goldilocks.
in the Goldilocks zone. Yeah, like
Mhm.
Earth-like planets and habitable zone, sun-like stars. That's the thing. Yeah.
Oh
pretty
yeah.
much.
Yeah, exactly. Like again, that's why that's what made science very, very popular. But over the last century or so, it's become closer and closer to dogma, and that's where you're like, oh, okay, so wait, if I come up with this theory that says maybe we can propel ourselves faster than the speed of light, I'm going to get a slew of physicists on my butt saying, no, everything you did is wrong, even if the math is correct. It's like, like
Yeah, well,
that's where you're going to be
that
in
is
position.
to me. It's like, well, we're only operating on one point in the universe where we are, and that's
Yes.
we haven't even really physically gone past our moon. If that, some people believe we haven't even gone there yet. But like,
Yeah.
I don't know, just to have all these matter of fact statements of the universe, it's like kind of foolish.
like,
It's like,
yeah,
well,
Kubrick did it.
these can be
Sure.
the highest supported with what we know for now, sure, but should always be ready to be moved because of new information or new things that happen. When they see things contradict things, it's like, oh, well, that shouldn't happen. Well, then maybe you kind of wrote that rule a little too soon, huh? Like, doesn't happen all the time. Like, where people say this is a definitive kind of thing, something else happens later. Okay, so it's not a definitive kind of thing.
Well,
Never mind.
mostly it's not even usually typically scientists that say this is a definitive type of thing. It's like scientists will say, well, this is the theory as it stands today now with the knowledge that we have. And then other people, typically politicians, say, okay, then this is a definitive law. This cannot change. It's like, no, it could change. We just don't know yet. We haven't discovered the thing that could make that change yet.
I feel like they think they have to, because if they're going to teach any of this in school, it's like, well, we need to tell them it's a fact. But it's like, but then if it changes, then we have to tell them, okay, so what we said was true is not true, and
what we said was true at the time. New information has now built upon what we now know.
Yeah, I feel like if it was with the until further information, then the whole Pluto thing would not have been a huge fiasco with anything.
Well, I mean, 3% of scientists, especially ones that study planets, only voted to say Pluto is not a planet. Well, because the rest of the community about studying planets was too busy actually studying planets to even care about voting for something so stupid.
That's something I actually hate too with voting systems. A lot of people say like, oh, like a majority of people voted for blank and blank. I'm like, what? 70 people out of like 1,000 voted?
Yeah.
The highest amount of those people that voted, there's 40 over 30. That's a weird way to say that everybody voted for it or something. It's like, no.
Exactly. Like, that's
Inaccurate
why Pluto has
representation.
been reclassified as a planet. Like, we are in a solar system with 9 classified planets, even though we have another planet in the asteroid belt called Ceres
Yep.
that is not.
Or is that
considered a
Planet X? Is that same one? Kind of.
No, Planet X is further out. It's outside of the normal solar system boundary that we have.
Okay.
But no, Ceres is the most planet-looking planet in the asteroid belt.
Okay. Damn.
And then you have all the moons around
So
Jupiter.
between Mars and Jupiter?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because then you have Saturn and then Uranus and all that stuff. And the moons around Jupiter and Saturn, they're like,
Oh, I'd done a lot of
relative in
studies
size
on those when I
to
was in high school.
Yeah.
Europa, especially, like that one. Oof, potential on that one, man. And Titan, Titan or Triton, or both.
Well, Titan is very comparable in regards to size, close to Earth compared to everything else that's in the solar system. Like Venus is a clone of Earth. It's so
just
close
way
to the
hotter,
sun. It's so toxic.
hotter. Yeah.
And also its day lasts longer than its year.
Right.
Because it doesn't rotate as quickly as us.
Yeah.
So by the time it orbits around the sun, a little bit later, it does a full rotation on its own axis.
Right. Yeah, see, this is the stuff I enjoy talking about, like the stuff with space and stuff like that, and comparing and whatnot. Even though it's been forever since I looked that stuff up, I still enjoy going back into it. It's a fun one. But CJ has a question here. Let me get on my actual glasses here because I can't read for shit. Okay, it says, I have a question for you physical media guys because I'm going to try to build my own library. So how do you deal with mold when it comes to having all that stuff on shelves?
Don't get it wet.
I was about to say mold would come from moisture, right? So yeah, don't spit on your bookshelf.
Be in a dry environment. Make sure the packaging that you have, especially for your physical media, is well sealed. some CD, I have seen CD degradation, and not through mold, just through use.
Right.
Back when I was working at Blockbuster in high school, we had DVDs that would be rented out so frequently, and we'd have to do we had the Disco Devil cleaner, so we'd have to clean it and dry it and then put it back in the case after every use, because sometimes
Okay.
people just didn't take care of it.
Right.
And it also helped out with some certain scratches and whatnot. And yeah, I remember it was a Friday the 13th Part 4 was frequently rented from our store, and when I started there, it was fine, and when I was leaving to go to college a few years later, that disc was degrading and falling apart because it'd been rented so much. Like, we would have it maybe in the store a day, and then someone else would have rented it again. And we had a lot of copies, but it just kind of just deteriorated over and over. And I'm talking like from the bottom side. What another thing you also have to be mindful is that older DVDs, if you scratch the surface, causing the laser will go right through it. It won't bounce back, so you actually have a digitization on the reader, and the DVD won't be useful. So you got to keep them clean and dry. And I would say if you're building a shelf, find spacers that you can actually hold the DVDs in, instead of using them butting them up side by side. It's always good to have a little bit of space, because you can get in there a lot easier to dust and maintain things. But again, the one of the reasons why physical media had a dip in comparison to streaming and digital is because there's a lot of people out there that had movies that were taking up so much space at home, they had nowhere to put them all, nowhere to store them all. And the convenience of it being digitally accessible meant, oh, I don't have to dedicate a whole room to all of my movies anymore. I can just turn on my TV or computer and watch it. Like, that's why I built a media server. Like, I have a ton of physical. Yeah. I have it all in storage, or I have it, like, mostly my sister has it because she has a big place. But I have a digital media server with almost 87 terabytes of space, almost packed with film and television shows that I can watch on a whim. And it's way more convenient, and it takes up almost no space in comparison to the amount of stuff that I had purchased up until that point.
Yeah, when you think about the amount of films and TV shows there are, I mean, that's a lot. That's more than you'll ever be able to watch, probably.
Actually, if you were to never sleep, there would be a few centuries worth of content for you to watch that you would never be able to see all of it ever.
Yeah.
And we're not just talking like North America. We're talking North America, the UK, parts of Europe, the English-speaking parts of Europe.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It goes deep.
Yeah.
It goes deep.
We have crossed the Rubicon where there is more content in existence than there is enough for one person to consume all of it ever.
Yeah.
Just by seeing it once.
Which kind of makes sense why some people are more choosy on what they want to watch, because it's like, well, this is what I feel for Your Movie Sucks, YMS, because he was getting a lot of crap one time for, like, he reviews like a lot of festival films. And there's 30 or more that he'll try to look at. There's a certain time frame, and he's physically. I don't know if he's physically there all the time, but I think you could access online too. I'm not sure how that works, but like, he's trying to watch all of them in a certain amount of time. And if there's ones that are just not pulling him in enough, then he'll stop watching it and give a review on what he saw and mention that he stopped at that point. And so he's not giving like a false thing of this is the whole review of the whole thing. It's like, well, I wasn't invested enough to this point to keep on doing that, and by stopping at this point, it allows me to check out another one instead of having any one of them like fully missed entirely. Like, he gives them all a chance in that type of sense, and he got a lot of flack for doing that, but he was always clear on which ones he didn't watch all the way, and these are ones that most people, the common folk, wouldn't have even heard of. So, like, I don't know. I'm curious what you think about that, though, because with that kind of a
props
thing,
for trying, I would say that.
because you've probably seen a lot of festival films, I assume.
Up before the pandemic, I would see around 60 to 100 a year. Most of them are pretty bad, but you have to give props for the people trying and getting it done.
Yeah.
A lot more short films than feature films. Short films always end up being usually far superior because they're focusing on something tight
Yeah.
and contained.
I feel like those are easier to do because there's less to juggle. So it's just like you
Yeah,
want a point, get to the
like-
point.
Yeah,
There
and
you
like exercise, you're building up a muscle, and the more you do it, the better you get at it, and more easier it becomes to the point where you can start pushing yourself a little further, more and more and more. I know I've seen a tragedy in the industry where there's people with a great deal of potential, and they get plucked out where they are and thrown, into they get plucked out from being a runner, and then they're thrown into being a heavy weightlifter, so to speak. And they just
Yeah.
collapse under the pressure because it's beyond what they're doing. And no matter how good of the support team they have around them, they just weren't able to pull it off. And of course, the studios throw them under the bus, and then they move on and find someone else that's going to go through the same
Yes.
thing over and over again. And that never used to be the case in Hollywood. It was always like, okay, kid, you did well here. I'll give you a little bit extra money. Let's see what you got with that. And then, oh, you did even better there. Okay, a little bit more. And again, Steven Spielberg was not an overnight success. He was directing TV for a decade before he made Jaws.
Damn. Yeah. Built up to it, which is good.
Yeah.
It's not snubbed out early either. That's good.
Exactly.
You'll
And
learn
that's-
a lot of mistakes along the way, probably,
Mhm.
and learn a lot of talent and things you didn't think you'd be taught. There's some things you probably can't just be taught, right? You have to kind of go through
Well,
to then get it.
you can
I
be
just-
taught them, but you probably won't learn them or understand them unless you actually experience them. And
right. It's like
that's
you
the
could be
difference.
taught how to fly a rocket.
Yes.
Like,
Until you actually
does that
do
mean
it,
you're
you're
gonna
still-
do it? Right.
Yeah, exactly. You still gotta. There's the theory, and then there's the applied.
Yes. But okay. So for CJ, he says that's another thing. What do you do when you run out of room? Well, what I did was because when I first got a job, whenever I go into like just anywhere and they have like movies on sale, I would just kind of buy a lot of them because they were cheap. It'd be like movie sets. Like here's four movies for like $5 or something, and like one of those packs or whatever. Here's the Blade movies and this little thing for $6. I'm like, oh sweet, okay, cool. And eventually I had way too many. And I'm like, oh Jesus! And I actually condensed recently, and this made Snowdub and Fanzine and Runner all flip out. They're like, no, you evil, you're doing wrong with this, because I looked at all the films that I either do not like, I have not seen yet, that I don't have much interest in really, or the ones that I will probably never watch again, likely just like, well, okay, I watched them, I have it, it's whatever. I put those into a little case sleeve thing here because like I don't want them taking. I want the ones that I'm gonna watch take up the physical space on the shelf, not ones that are rarely going to be touched, if ever, pretty much.
Yeah.
So if you have ones that you consider are lesser value, but you don't want to get rid of, you still have them, get one of these DVD sleeve things. This thing holds probably like over 50, maybe 100. I'm not sure. This one
You risk
specifically.
scratching the discs with those. That's the only problem.
Yeah, but I feel like it's a worthy risk for freeing up space, because it's ones that aren't as needed, aren't as loved anyway. So
Yeah.
it's just like, it depends on what value you want to put on the condition of the discs and stuff. I'm okay with risking that because I don't have the room to hold everything. I want to have room for ones that I want to keep now. And the way I kind of do it, if I'm not even sure, like I'd rather not buy a DVD that I'm not sure that, like, if I haven't seen before. So what I do now and what I've done lately is I will usually, if it's not free to watch on a streaming service that I have, then I'll rent it on Amazon for like $3 or $4, whatever that is for it. And if I enjoyed the movie, then I'm going to buy a DVD, then I'm going to buy a physical copy. But if not, then, then I won't have the physical copy to go, I bought this movie, I don't know what to do with it because I'm not going to watch it,
Yeah.
It's a lot better. That's what I did with The Thing. I rented it, and then I was like, that was great. And so I bought it. Boom, now I've got it. But then there's other movies I've watched where I'm like, hey, boy, Night
I
of the
lost
Demons.
$3 in my time.
Yeah, Night of the Demons. I was
Oh, I'm
like, oh,
sorry.
man. I watched that, and I'm like, I'm so glad I did not purchase that thing. My God. Not my movie. Not my kind of movie. No. Scream, though. Rented those. Loved those. Bought those now. I've got their collection thing.
Oh,
Freaking
they're a
love
film
Scream.
junkies. They're a film critics or a film makers like drug of choice. I haven't met a young ambitious filmmaker that didn't love Scream or any of the Scream films. It's like, oh man. Now I then met filmmakers that are a little older who got into it in their 30s or 40s. who are then like, yeah, no, I'm not the biggest fan of Scream.
Yeah,
It's a
well,
little
it's
too
one of
on
those
the nose for them.
franchises where they keep
Yeah.
on making them now still. It's like they
They
had
make
a good
money.
ending point and it was so meta with it in the first place, but it was good for what that was. And then, and now they keep on making them still. Why can't
They
people learn to stop, man?
they lost the point of what Wes Craven was trying to do.
Yeah, I feel like number 4 was like a good, like number 3 was a great ending to a trilogy, and the fourth was like if you're gonna attempt a reboot thing, that was a decent enough cap off. Some things that could have been tweaked to make it better still, but it wasn't god awful. It was fine.
Yeah.
But then fifth one, pretty bad. Not many good things in that one. Sixth one has some better parts to it for story ideas. Still not a good movie though. Still not a good movie. But so I love that. I just got into that franchise this year. So I watched them all in a row and then watched the new one when that came out. So freaking it became one of my favorite franchises just in one sitting, essentially, for watching it. But so there's that. A couple other things, man. I'd like to give an example of how much stuff I've been watching too. I haven't even done videos on these yet, but I plan to one day, maybe before the end of the year. I'm not sure. I saw like Hell or High Water, American Psycho, Bullet Train, Showdown in Little Tokyo, Sicario, The Lone Survivor. I watched the Game of Thrones, of course, the TV shows there, all the John Wick movies, which extremely decline in quality, if you ask me.
Yeah, the first one is the best one.
Yeah, that one was so solid. Second one, it's not like awful, but it's clearly losing quality. But it's like, okay, that's like a watchable, fun one. Third one, I'm like, oh God, kill me. What is going on? And then in the fourth one, a lot of cool visual things. Everything else is awful to me. Like everything was awful in that film. I can understand why people like it, but suspension of disbelief is just out of the window, especially based on the first film. Like, so he's Captain America. Is he not like Super Soldier Man? Because he should have died 1,000 times. But yeah,
they elevated him to like borderline godhood almost.
Yeah, I hated that so much, but I don't want to talk about John Wick. Then I saw Prisoners, which that really surprised me with Hugh Jackman and who else was the other guy? You've seen Prisoners, right?
Gerard Butler, right?
Gerard Butler, right?
Yeah,
yeah. It's freaking like it's one of those chill movies that's just it's just like really slow pace, really intimate, kind of, I guess, would how I describe it. And it's just like, God, the worry as a parent with that and what happens, that just really good. I freaking love that one. The passion of the parent with that, really good. Power Rangers Once and Always. Did you see that one, man? I
did. The Power Rangers reunion. Lots of questions raised by that. Like, who's the father of Trini's daughter?
Yeah,
what happened to him?
I'm so split with that film because, like, at first going into it, I was thinking it was going to be utter shit, and then when I saw it, I was pretty excited for it. And then after I thought about it longer, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, this is not that good, really, either, huh? And I understand they had limitations of sorts.
Well,
people will say JDF he killed himself. No, he was alive when they asked him to be in it. He didn't want to. He was filming The White Dragon or something
for Batman's Son. Yeah,
and I just felt he didn't want to be in it. Amy Jo Johnson, I forget, she didn't give a reason why she couldn't be in it, but I assume something personal or whatever.
She's got I think her daughter is like 10 years old, so, and she lives in Montreal or somewhere in Canada.
Yeah,
so I don't think she wanted to fly out to California for 5 weeks to shoot that, especially during, like, they were doing that during the pandemic stuff, so that was complicated.
I mean, I give them props for how they were trying to have it be with continuity, with whatever that means in Power Rangers, because they go against continuity sometimes. But
Power Rangers has never been peak writing quality.
No, it's never been peak, but I feel like it's always one of those shows that has better quality in it in little chunks than people would give it credit for. in
Oh,
some
absolutely.
seasons,
I
some
mean,
characters, some episodes.
you take a look at just the overall concept and what they're trying to do with it, and you're like, wow, this, if a real writer got their hands on this would be a phenomenal, this would break Star Wars. And
Yeah,
for the
I think
90s,
so.
it did dominate. It was bigger than anything ever. And then Disney purchased it and drove it into the ground. And then Haim Saban,
Which seasons were under their which was under Disney again?
let's see. They purchased it, I believe, in 2001. Let me double check.
So they would have had Time Force
I don't think they
and
had Time Force.
Lightspeed.
So they purchased Disney. Disney purchased Power Rangers in 2001, and then they
That would have been after Time Force was finished already.
yeah, that had been out of Time Force, and then they sold it in 2010.
Wow, so they had it for a lot of that run.
They had it for 9 years, and they actually it was the first time under Disney that Power Rangers was canceled, and they had a couple of years where there's no seasons.
Which after which season was that?
I think they canceled in 08. So
Wait,
I don't know.
Was that after Mystic Force or something?
Might have been one of the ninja ones. I don't know. With the two Red Rangers, like the girl and guy Red Ranger or something. I don't know. I wasn't watching them.
Yeah, I wasn't either. Last one I watched investmentally back in the day was SPD. Not that back then it was out the door anyway, sort of. But
yeah.
I don't. They had some good seasons within there here and there. Lightspeed Rescue is not excellent, but there is some moments and character things in there that I think are good. But overall, I mean, it's of course, it's cheesiness is the majority, I know, but the leader of it, essentially the general guy or whatever, and Carter,
yeah,
they had some good elements with
some of the later. Some of the later seasons leaned more closer to what the Sentai was, because the majority of the Sentai, it was always some sort of government agency that created these power suits for this team of 5 to use to stop, an alien threat or what have you. And
Yeah.
Lightspeed Rescue had that type of operation. I think Time Force to a degree had that.
Yeah, in the future, but yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of like the model that they did. Sentai themselves was fantastic because I've seen a lot of the original Super Sentai stuff. It's great stuff until they started getting into the CG and leaning more into the K-pop level stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I thought they were really cool back in the day. The other part too is it was a lot of practical sets and bigatures and people in costumes actually doing stuff, and now it's just okay, we'll just computer animate it and then won't have as much fun with it.
That's so unfortunate. I mean, even in the Once and Always, when they had the Megazord fight and it was like CGI, I was like, oh my god, this looks so worse than just the costume. I don't understand why they went with this. I mean, I think it's fine when they have the when they're doing the transforming and that's digital a little. I mean, if they put better effects into it, that'd be nice. And then
when it's
the
Netflix,
Megazord to have it be the actual thing, that'd be fine.
Well, Netflix does not have as many original shows that they do. They don't really spend top dollar on everything.
Do you think Power Rangers would be a big brand too?
Well, really Power Rangers is a very damaged brand. Again, Haim Saban had to buy it back from Disney when they drove it into the ground. What was very funny is when Disney was purchasing a whole catalog that was licensed through Fox, and Power Rangers was part of that. And Power Rangers was one of the main reasons why they wanted it, because for years Disney has been trying to corner the boys market. They dominated girls. That sounds weird, but they dominated.
They had animals and princesses and stuff.
They were getting those dollars in, and it was keeping them afloat. It was bringing lots of families to their parks and what have you. But they literally were a business that could only appeal to 50% of the actual market share. And that's why they actually had to lean into creating theme parks, is because only girls were seeing their cartoons and things primarily. And unlike boys, girls don't like to go back and watch things over and over and over again in the same way. They're kind of like one and done more often than not. And Disney was not able to sustain itself that way. But they realized, hey, we have these magical fairy tale stories stuff. If we create a theme park experience, we can actually make a lot of money because it's essentially a tourist trap. People will fly to wherever we build it. They'll spend lots of money here. It's usually foreign currency. So
Yeah.
which means that's not money part within the country's economy. It's money being injected in from other countries, which is really good for any national economy. And that's what they're able to do. And what ended up happening is that over the course of the 60s and 70s, Disney changed from being a studio to a theme park industry that made film and television to advertise their parks. And when you take a look at the pantheon that they did, they had released a fair amount of really good hit films, but it's not back to back year over year over year. It's one here in 89, one here in 92, one here in 95, one here in 97.
What about even those like direct to TV movies they made? Those probably
the
could have
direct
been
TV
released in
movies
theaters and probably would have been made them a little more money, maybe, right? I don't know. It's hard for me to tell back then.
At that time, if they put it direct to TV, it basically means that they didn't think it would make the money in the theaters, so they tried to get it out on the secondary market as quickly as possible because they could make a lot of money just on the Disney brand alone. And as I like to remind people, is that Disney was always considered a little player studio. They were an art house studio for cartoons. They rarely made money off their cartoons, but people loved them. When home media came around in the 80s, that's when they started to see profits again because they were able to re-release Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Cinderella.
They can get the theater release and they can get the home stuff too.
Yeah, and the thing is that lots of families would buy the Disney movies because they were wholesome, great content for little kids. And that's what they end up doing. And what ended up happening is that they created the vault strategy, which means, okay, for 5 years, we're not going to sell this movie. Then we're going to sell it. We're going to get a huge amount of sales. And then
put it away
5 years
again. Yeah.
And put it away again. But every year would be a release of one of the movies that came out of the vault. So they're never losing revenue. They weren't oversaturating their market. They weren't saying we're releasing Cinderella and Little Mermaid from the vault today. And it's the first time, and for 4 months, and it's the first time you can buy. It's like, no, we're releasing Cinderella first. And then next year we're releasing Little Mermaid. And then next year we're going to release Aladdin. And so it's constant flow of money because they know if they keep it on the shelves for 5 years, they're only going to get all those sales in that first immediate release.
How many new fans are they going to really get with it? Right.
And it's also creating a little sense of artificial scarcity because then they can calculate, all right, we're only going to run off this.
The value technically goes up if there's less being made of them, right?
Exactly. We're only going to run off, say, 100,000 copies of Cinderella. And we're going to do that for this release, this quarter. And once it's done, that's it. And if they don't sell all out, then they do a recall, they bring them back. And then when they do another run of it, they do that with another launch for the Disney films.
Right.
And that was it. And then they did that plus a bunch of straight to video cartoons. They were connected with Family Channel for a long time. They co-produced a bunch of shows there. But again, they were always considered the kids brand, the small little thing that could. What changed that is when Bob Iger bought Marvel and Lucasfilm.
And then they became big hitters now.
And then they became big players in the pond.
Right.
And when you're the biggest studio in the industry, you dictate how all the other studios market their products and how they approach their films.
I see.
And they basically took the Disney model, and the Disney model, for anyone that had ever been paying attention to Hollywood, has not been 100% successful all the time over the course. In fact, Paramount had a better model over the 70s, 80s, and 90s with their Godfather films, their horror films, their Star Trek films, and then Mission Impossible films. And then they threw all that out the window in order to try and follow Disney. Warner Brothers, the same thing. They were big action and thriller. They are the godfathers of the superhero feature film with Superman. They capped off that 10-year span with Batman. And then they hired Akiva Goldsman that killed that franchise. And then they stumbled after that. United Artists, Sony, Columbia Pictures, MGM, they all had their gimmicks that have good hits, but more consistently throughout the 70s, 80s, and 90s and early 2000s. And then that all kind of changed when Disney kind of took over. MGM started faltering. Now, United Artists is still around, but they're in such a small capacity than what they were when years ago when Charlie Chaplin and his ilk formed it. Lots of structural changes and methods being changed. And it's been a detriment to the whole industry to follow that. If anything, they should have said, oh, good. Marvel's doing really well with Disney and stuff. How do we compete with that instead of copying their model?
That's
And
what I thought you're supposed to kind of do. Was like, okay, that's how they're doing it. Now let's come up with how we can spice up our things that can compete with that. That's not the same as that, because that would saturate the market anyway and make it all worse for everybody, technically. So
yeah, I mean, that's how competition is supposed to work. It's like, oh wow, they did that. How can we do that better? And how can we do it that sticks to our brand? And right now, like we were talking about this before the show, there's lots of controversy over the Barbie film.
Yeah.
But one thing that's kind of fascinating about it is that they use a story trope, which is, hey, Kens are taking over Barbie world. Well, what's that allegorical to? Let's take a look at Star Wars. You have a lot of female characters now taking over a predominantly male brand that does include females. It doesn't discriminate against females, but they were never they were never the main characters. And as they are written in this, they're tearing down the established competent characters to be incompetent and subservient. And when you go into Barbie and you see Ken World take over, what do? Well, all the Barbies they introduced, that's like physicist Barbie, Dr. Barbie, President Barbie, they're all now dumb and incompetent and subservient to the Kens. And the Kens haven't changed at all. It's like, well, that's very reflective of what's been happening with Disney over there. And what does the movie say? Hey, this isn't right. This is a girl's space. Barbie land is supposed to be Barbie land. And so the Barbies find a way to take it back from the men.
Which
and
makes
it's
sense.
Almost like a message saying, hey, Disney, let boys play with Star Wars again.
Let boys be boys. What?
Yes. And the question is was that intentional or was that accidental? I don't know. That's the thing. We live in a time where we don't know if that was intentional or not.
The best I've heard of it is like it's a feminist self-own, where they probably were trying to make a point that wasn't the point they're trying to make, and that it was able to come out regardless. Something like that. Maybe. But like, it's like, guys shouldn't want to control Barbie anyway, because it's for girls. That's the whole point. It's been a while since they've had a film with a franchise type of thing that is aimed at girls anyway. They made a movie on, right?
And they kept
when
it
was the last time they
girls.
done that?
And they kept it about girls. And the other part too, and this is the irony part, is that for many years Mattel has been kind of pushing for more sales for Ken, but the customers reject it. And so what does this movie do? Well, it treats the franchise as the customers have, saying, yes, we acknowledge there's a Ken, but we're more interested in Barbie. And we're like, I don't see a problem with that. Like just that.
Yeah,
now, all the other stuff there, that's up for debate. I think a lot of people's interpretations are absolutely valid and fair with regards to some of the stuff. But at the same time, it's like, it's a Barbie movie. If you hate Barbie, you kind of get a couple of laughs out of it. And if you love Barbie, you might really enjoy it. And its biggest failure, I think, is the fact that they didn't make it more accessible to kids under the age of 13.
Yeah, they probably would have been more. They probably would have made even more money at that point.
It is a PG-13 film, but the marketing was not very good at stating it was a PG-13 film. I think the vast majority of all the trailers don't even mention the rating, which is bad because you should be. And
I thought the trailer that had the girls smashing the dolls, I don't know, like mimicking 2001. I mean, to me, that's sort of like, I don't know how that entices a kid. So,
well, I mean, that's reflective of a lot of girls that I knew when they were playing with baby girl dolls or Cabbage Patch dolls, and then they saw Barbie for the first time, they would just toss the doll away and then go after Barbie. and they're just taking it to its ultimate extreme, which is like, okay, we're getting rid of these completely. And then some people will infer this is some sort of political allegory. It's like, maybe it could be, but maybe it's just being hyperbolic with how kids toss away something they no longer like anymore in favor of something new.
Didn't that happen with things in general, where it's like, well, like you just said, like it's a new thing is introduced and it just hit. It was a banger, and then boom. Like Cabbage Patch Kids or something became a new thing after Barbie, right? That was like 90s, right?
Came afterward. But here's the other part too. What happens when, say, a beer brand does something you don't like, or a shoe brand does something you don't like? Well, you burn and you shoot. You shoot up the beer cans, you burn the shoes. It's like, hey, isn't that a little extreme? Yeah, but you don't like it anymore, so you're treating it with that disdain.
Yeah,
in favor of something else. That's what they're doing. Like maybe it has a deeper message for you to infer. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's just having fun with it. And the other part too is like, and that's that's okay. And I think the only thing that I'm taking away out of this as a positive is that it's a movie that's warranting discussion about
Yep.
the movie itself, not so much the box office and whatever political agenda is there. There's also all other interpretations of it. It's not so superficial and straightforward like the Batwoman TV series was,
Yeah.
or
Well,
like some of the Disney Plus shows that have come out recently.
Well, and
Well,
we have the
especially
context.
She-Hulk.
We have the context of those in our head as we watch this one. So it's not like this is a new thing, brand new. When like
Mhm.
Ghostbusters first hit and stuff, and it was like becoming more in our face for the first time. Like what? We've been dealing with this for years now. So so as we watch this, we have those in our mind and can see this as like we talked about. There can be satire elements here. There can be other things going on here, and it's not. And at the end of the day, if as worst as it is, if they made a Barbie universe and have things like this, let's just say for like hypothetical, it gets more woke or something. I mean, I don't know. It's Barbie. Like I don't know what to. It's not like
Does woke not work better for Barbie than any other franchise?
It's hard. It's hard to compare it to like ruining Star Wars or ruining Lord of the Rings or something. I'm like, those were very different type of animals to try to ruin. So I can't compare them. Those aren't comparable.
The other part too is that there's more stuff that I guess falls in line with woke that you could argue fits better with Barbie than it does with Star Wars or Superman or Marvel. It's like, okay, girls rule, boys drool. If that's part of the woke agenda, that's something that I remember being chanted a lot when I was a kid.
Were we okay with the Little Rascals back then? Like,
yeah,
that was like girls stink, and girls were like guys stink. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. Like, that's kind of how I see it too. Not every movie has to be equal in terms of a side necessarily. But I guess we're used to seeing a lot. It's not just that we see a lot of it. Those are the films that we tend to watch in our sphere and hyper focus on it. So it's like there's other films that come out, but will we see all those ones? I don't know.
I don't know. I watched a lot. I saw a couple of trailers that looked really fascinating. There's a Hilary Swank and Alan Ritchson movie about based off a true story about a father whose daughter is sick, and there's a snowstorm and they have to get her to the airport to get to surgery, and Hilary Swank helps them organize the town to shovel out the road so that they can make it to the airport and save his daughter. I'm like, that's a cool movie. I'd watch that. That's heartwarm and heartfelt.
Yes.
Michael Caine is in a film called The Great Escaper about him returning to D-Day on an anniversary, and it's made worldwide news, and it looks like a very touching love story between him and his wife. I'm like, that looks great.
Good. Yeah, good.
Nobody's talking about that.
There's a lot of films this year that I wish that I saw, but like I just wasn't able to. There's a lot of them that were coming out. There's like I don't remember all the names. I want to say the Polite Society. There's some Asian one. There's some like Geome or Biome movie. These ones all seemed lower budget, less Holly. I don't know. Maybe a few people reviewed them in our sphere, but like they weren't much discussion. Yeah. But it's like I want to see that. I still want to see those at some point because those weren't the big office hitters that look interesting. And like we could talk about those too, like in our sphere a lot. But I mean, we talk about ones that do get more views and more attention. I mean, that makes sense. But like you said, I like the discussion around Barbie, even though I don't want to see it. Even if I were to see it, it wouldn't be for me really. It's one of those ones. I've changed my position on things have changed a lot since I first became more in tune with film and stuff, and in this area, this fandom of stuff, with the whole, it wasn't made for you, or you don't like it, and then don't buy my book. It's like, well, I'm not taking it as offensive as it used to be to me. It's kind of like, okay, like some things are kind of marketed for other things. And it's like my aunt was visiting and she wanted to see my Fat Speedster short film before it's released. But I was like, this ain't for you. Like you're not going to understand anything in this. Like this is humor for my sphere. I know how you are. You're like the way you are. You're not going to know what's going on. So any of the jokes, any references, anything going on here in my sphere, people who watch movies, this will be banger, easy. But like her, no.
Yeah, you're not my target audience. Like, listen, when I saw the Barbie they're making a Barbie film, I was like, oh, that's sweet. Girls would like that. And then I saw the trailers. I'm like, wow, this is actually looking like a really cool film. Maybe I'll be interested in it. Then I started reading the reviews. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe I don't want to watch it. Then my girlfriend says, "Hey, let's go watch the Barbie movie," and I'm like, "Well, if you're paying, I'm going. Like, I'm not gonna treat you
That's on you this time. Yeah.
because I don't really
Pay
I
for
don't
all
really,
the other
I don't
ones.
have
Sorry.
I don't have any skin in the game." And then I
I
watched
paid,
it. I'm like,
I paid for the last 100. You got this one.
yeah. So I'm watching it. I'm like, okay, this is okay. Interesting how some of the jokes that they're intending to be jokes actually land. That's
Mhm.
rare. That doesn't happen
That's a
in a woke.
plus. That's a plus. Wow.
Yeah, that doesn't really happen in a woke film. I mean, sometimes they do something woke and I laugh, and it's like they don't intend for me to laugh at that.
Like She-Hulk's like the perfect example to that kind of thing.
Yeah,
where it's
there's
like
some-
they're trying to be funny and it's just not
and
funny,
it's
or
just
they're
not
trying to
funny.
be serious and it's like, well, is that funny? I don't know, because that was funny if
Yeah.
you said because you're not
But, like,
trying
you
to
know,
be serious. What?
I'm seeing all the hallmarks of a satire. I'm seeing irony. I'm seeing exaggeration, ridicule, and criticism, and
Yeah.
having fun with the people that are not quite informed, exploiting vices and things of that nature. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. I'm like, now instead of watching it as a movie, I'm watching it as a writer.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I get it. And then I'm paying attention to the audience, and they're enjoying it. And when the movie ended, there wasn't cheers or applause, but there's a lot of murmurs of like, wow, that was really good. And, that type of stuff. I'm thinking, okay, I've been in movie audiences where it's been woke on screen and there's people saying, what the hell is this? This is garbage. Let's leave. Let's get our money back. And that did not happen in a Barbie film. And the box office seems to be in favor of it right now. We'll have to wait for the next weekend to really see what happens. And one of the things that I picked up is like, holy crap, this is a movie that's defending itself from a third party trying to take it over. A third party that doesn't belong in a dominant position of this type of film taking over. It's like that's
the Kens shouldn't be equal. The guys shouldn't. It
Kens
shouldn't be aimed for
equal.
guys.
Not only should they not be equal, they shouldn't also be in charge of the franchise.
Yeah,
and I'm like, okay, that's interesting. It's
this is true.
And so I started realizing, like, yeah, when I'm looking at all the franchises that men have made, they've never been dismissive of women. They've actually included them, but they have specific roles to play. Ken has a specific role to play. He is an accessory to Barbie.
Yeah, it's a supporting.
It's not
character.
great if you're a man trying to put yourself in Ken's shoes, but it works for Barbie. And then
that's what's funny. I don't usually do that. I feel like most guys don't do that, right?
No,
like,
we don't.
I don't go, I'm him. Like the best example I can think of that I saw in the last year, Legally Blonde. Like, so I watched that after She-Hulk with Angus. We were like, we need a cleanser and we need to watch a Lost show that's different.
We need to see a real.
We never saw Legally Blonde before, so we're like, let's give that a shot, see how that is. And it was surprisingly good. And it's like totally aimed for girls, I would think. For women, it's
but it's also got an engaging mystery too that works for a guy.
Yeah, it is funny, and like a lot of it seemed like even I don't know how accurate the Lost stuff was, but they're at least playing it like it seems like it would be legit, like more
they
than
try
anything
to make
like
it
She-Hulk,
authentic,
where She-Hulk, it was like you've heard words before, but you have no idea what any of this means to you. Like Legally Blonde, I was like, oh, wow, I'm caring about the character, even though it's like all fashiony stuff, whatever. They, the character has a core and elements and acted well and everything. I'm just like, this was all right. This is pretty good. And but they're the dude characters. I don't really remember many of them at all. I don't. They're around. She has a love interest, I think, but then doesn't really care, I think.
There's Luke Wilson's in there, right? Yeah.
Yeah, he's in there. He's the one that like she's supposed to kind of like, that's like the friend that's not her desire or something, but she ends up kind of liking him, I think. But it's like, oh, sweet, I guess, nice. But yeah, no, that one was good. That like just like with Barbie or whatever. It's like that's their like I'd prefer that being that. It doesn't need to be the guy doesn't need to be in the role to like it right up with them all the time.
I mean, the other part too is like you go look at Star Wars. Leia is really the only real woman in that film, but she stands out. And she's a contributor. But it's still Luke's story and it's still Han's story. And there's nothing dismissive with regards to that. Then you get to the more modern stuff. You're like, okay, well, you've got a new female character. People are giving her the benefit of the doubt, but she doesn't have any flaws. She doesn't have any obstacles to overcome. She's so independent that the movie kind of bends around her. You're like, well, this doesn't feel authentic or good. Then you have this really fascinating character of Finn, who's like, oh, I'm an ex stormtrooper. What's my life now that I'm no longer brainwashed and no longer conditioned to be killing in white uniforms? Oh,
Yeah.
let's explore that. No, you're not. Wait, what? The series isn't exploring this anymore. What the heck? Like this,
You want this story, but you get this other one.
yeah, and it's
Yeah,
being
thank
injected
you.
with a different type of perspective and narrative, and then you look at something like Barbie. It's like, oh, they're are they mocking Disney in this film? Like,
They
could
could. They could be.
because
They could be.
I mean, again, Disney did do a Barbie like movie with I think Lindsay Lohan, and
Yeah, the life
Tyra
size. You're thinking
Banks.
of. You're thinking of life size.
Life Size, yeah.
That was another one of those
And
Disney. That was like a straight to TV one.
there's
I
like
think.
a straight to video one.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, Disney, yeah, because Disney dominates girls' markets. And now Warner Brothers and Warner Brothers dominated male markets. And now Warner Brothers has a girl property, and they do it so well that they're actually making a whole lot of money, and they actually might be making profit by the end of this weekend on their film. It might have been all paid for, their box office, their P&R, and then budgeted. And it's like, well, that's really impressive. And what's one of the things that they do in there? They make sure to say, this is Barbie's world for a Barbie girl. It's not Ken's. And it's like, could that be? And again, because I worked in the studio system, you can kind of see subtle jabs at each other, especially in competitive ones, where it's like, hey, Disney, you're the girl brand that you tried to turn boys franchises into girls and it didn't work. Well, here, we're going to take a girl brand. We're going to mock about turning it into a boy brand, but then we're going to make sure we reinforce it as a girl brand in the end.
Yeah.
And we're going to, suppose it looks like it's going to happen. We're going to ride that all the way to the bank. And it seems like that might be the case because, again, sometimes every once in a while, a studio will put out a movie that is deliberately going to mock another movie. You had DreamWorks put out Shrek, making fun of Disney having lost a bunch of rights to characters that they no longer had the rights to, especially public domain ones. And Shrek wiped the floor with Disney when that came out.
Yes. And they were clever with how they did their humor. As a kid, it's one way you watch it. As adults, another way you watch it. So
yeah, I would say they executed the humor and innuendo way better than Barbie did.
Yeah.
But there's a parallel there.
Well, and also, I mean, on top of it, it seems like them having a binary at all of just boy and girl.
Mm-hmm.
That's
and they committed to it. I mean, sure.
Shocker.
Apparently, there's one actor in there that was
there's a trans actor in there, but like they weren't preaching.
They did not point her out.
So
they did not overhype it. They did not highlight anything. They didn't call her trans Barbie.
Which that's actually that's kind of what we would rather them be.
And
right?
this is a person who
make it the whole point.
And even more important, this is an actor who transitioned as an adult. They weren't compelled or manipulated or wanted to do this as a kid. They did this of their own volition.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, all right, I see no problem with that.
Yeah, totally fine.
Okay, great. And here's the other part too.
Hyper focus on it either. So
she's playing a man turned into a woman, but she's playing a Barbie and she's playing it as a girl. And there's no highlight or narrative or anything to say, look at this trans Barbie. She used to be a Ken. Like, they don't do that. And if it was a really woke film, they would have.
They would have. That would have been their favorite thing to do, and to wait and see what the comments are about that. That's what they would have loved to do.
Because that's the other part too. Again, when does someone who make a woke film hold back on woke ideology?
They don't. As they get more bold, they get more bold with it, like in She-Hulk.
Exactly.
They literally try to pull comments and go, see, this is what you losers say, and this is what we think about that.
And to Barbie's benefit, a lot of the cast, because they're on strike, they cannot promote the film, which means they can't stick their foot in their mouth with whatever ideology they have that they want to imbue on this film. So it's now left more up to the audience to interpret it than it is to the cast and crew saying, yes, this is a politically charged movie about women's suffrage or something of that nature.
That's also a thing that they try to do with anything. Like, I think even in for Andor, some of the actors were like, oh, there's like a Trump part or something. And it's like, I watched Andor. I have no idea who the hell they're talking about.
I don't know where they're getting that from. Yeah.
That's actors talk out of their butt sometimes. They don't know what they're talking about sometimes. But
exactly. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Good points. I like that. Real quick, CJ says, question, would it be better if they, 1, made Star Wars public domain, 2, licensed out Star Wars and Marvel with other companies like Sony does with Spider-Man, or they slow down in games, or 3, help fund Star Wars fan films? I'm going to let you go with that.
Okay.
I mean, I think that public domain would be neat, and or the helping fan film funding, but I don't know, honestly, how that would help.
Well, I'll put it to you this way. I love fans, but fans don't create. They consume, and we're grateful for them to consume. And when a fan finds a way to build that bridge to become a creator, they can still be a fan, but the creativity and the creating part dominates first.
Yeah.
And I have been privy to a lot of fan films, especially with Star Wars, Batman, and Power Rangers, and all those types of things.
Yep.
99% of them are terrible.
I agree.
They just are.
I agree.
It's because your love of the fandom that you're playing in is blinding you from the responsibilities you need to tell a good story.
Yeah.
So public domain, I am not good with, because public domain will basically oversaturate the market with a bunch of crap. If you don't believe me, take a look at all the Hercules stories that used to be out, all the Robin Hood stories that are out there. There are more bad than good. That's
I mean, even Batman. I feel like there's so many Batman films. I'm kind of like, I'm not gonna.
Oh
watch all
God.
those. I'm not gonna.
There's
watch
so
all
many
those.
Batman films with the Joker where the Joker has some sort of scene where they're monologuing about their motivation, and it's really ignorant attempt at trying to be cerebral. And there's several of them that are copying the Heath Ledger interpretation, which is not the Joker, but I know a fun
Yeah.
version for that film.
There's a bunch of Bond ones, but I guess those are spread out enough where that's different.
Well,
enough
the
from
Bond
each other.
ones, yeah, they're also kind of lame because they don't have as many puns, and some of them are just downright perverse. Then there's also the Star Trek films, which their production usually is a little bit better, but because they can't do all the stuff that Star Trek does, what you get is a bunch of those brief expositional scenes around the conference table, but instead of it being a minute scene in the show, it's the entire film. And it's like you're kind of capturing Star Trek, but you're not. Star Trek isn't about the discussion. Star Trek isn't about the technobabble. Star Trek is an analysis of the human condition. And we use that allegorically by showing species that are going through the things that in this version of humanity they have already solved. And it's like they have solved it to the point where they might even not quite understand how they solved it. They just don't have it as an issue. So now they're being reintroduced to this problem again, and they're using all of their current day knowledge and experiences to understand this problem and maybe nudge or help those people come to a resolution on their own, as opposed to saying, well, this is how we solved it. Here you go. That's not what happens in Star Trek. Star Trek is the discussion. And a lot of them do lead to a specific conclusion, but the way that they get there is to play around with multiple perspectives of how that problem is being addressed. A lot of people like to preach saying, oh, Star Trek didn't tell you how they ended their stories or didn't morally preach to you. Oh, it did. You just didn't pick up on it because you were so engaged in the journey to there. There's a very strong morality. And whenever I ask them to say, give me an episode of Star Trek where the ending is left ambiguous to make up your own mind, I cannot get any response to that because they think they have an episode. They watch and like, oh, wait, no. The one where the Klingons and the Federation are arming the aliens, it doesn't leave it up to choice. It's like it pretty much says it's really wrong to give one side more powerful weapons than the other for your own moral.
Yeah, you're choosing whatever side to win.
You're choosing a side to win. And at the end, Kirk is like, I don't know what to do. All I know is that if I stay here, I will just escalate things. So it's best for me to leave and maybe they will sort themselves out. And that's kind of the lessons. Like, you don't interfere.
Yeah. For the way my mom put it, she's like, to summarize Star Trek, it's basically they want to go and explore the universe and civilizations, but they're not supposed to interact with anything. They interact with things and then realize they shouldn't. And like end up learning a lesson at the end of the day or something.
The thing is, they're allowed to interact with things. They cannot influence or shape. And that's a big difference. They can say hi.
But I mean, arriving can change things though at all. Like
if they know how you arrive. Like that's the brilliance of what Star Trek was, is that when they would go down to the planets, some planets, they would, if they were aware of them, they would dress up like the locals to disguise themselves.
Well, I mean, if they saw, I mean, like I guess if they, I mean, I would say if they don't even understand what a spaceship is, but they see like land and they had no previous like space visitor before. Well, now you've introduced that there's a flying thing that can come down and people come out. You are gods or something, and now you've changed their thing without.
But they don't. Yeah, like Star Trek never really did anything like that in the original series. A lot of the times they go to a planet that doesn't have a civilization on it, and then just do studies and recons, and then they'd find something else is underneath, and that would be your conflict and problem. There's one called the Apple. So they go to a planet, and they know that there's another alien species there, but they're trying to stay away from them because they're doing a survey. And then what happens is that they get in trouble, and they end up being caught by this alien species. And then they realize, oh wait, this alien species has not been allowed to evolve because some other third party has come in and has subjugated them, and it's like a machine, and they have to feed it ritualistically, and that machine is also draining the ship's power, so it's putting them and their crew in danger. So what do they have to do? Well, they've got to restore the balance that has been perverted, that has been introduced here, and so they destroy the machine. And then they're like, okay, so now you don't have this machine. Now you guys can flourish as a civilization. You can have kids. And they're like, well, what are kids? It's like, you'll figure it out. And then they leave. And then they make a commentary. It's like, was this the right thing to do? It's like, well, we gave them free will. And then they made an allegory to the Bible. And Spock was like, well, I don't think that's a good idea to do that. And then McCoy and Kirk make a joke. Well, if there's a biblical reference here, of the three of us, who's the one that would look most like the devil, is what they imply. And because Spock has the pointed ears, it would be him.
Of course,
and that's the little joke that they make at towards the end. But I mean, that's kind of what Star Trek was doing. It was just exploring other planets. There's other ones where they explore planets where those planets have already been made aware of Starfleet and the Federation. So there's no violation in the Prime Directive, but still the Enterprise gets caught up in whatever conflict they're doing, and they have to resolve it. The other part too, and this has happened with the Next Generation, is that they've turned the Prime Directive into a dogma. And that's wrong, because the Prime Directive says that you just cannot shape or change the culture to suit your whims. But the Prime Directive doesn't prohibit you from flying through space, seeing, hey, there's an asteroid coming to that planet that's a burgeoning civilization. You know what? Let's just use our tractor beam and nudge it out of the way so that it doesn't get destroyed. They can do that. So long as that people on that planet have no idea that the Enterprise did it, it's fine. It's not in violation. You are taking something that is considered, that it could be argued as unnatural, which is that, a third party element is coming in to destroy something, and it's not of the own. It's an external force. It is not the culture themselves destroying themselves. So if the culture was destroying themselves, the Enterprise could not help them or save them, because that'd be complete interference. But an asteroid coming towards them, that's also interference. And it's like, well, we could just nudge it out of the way. Or say you have a species that is pre-warp, doesn't have that, but is able to communicate and spot the Enterprise and says, hey, this star is going to explode. We are asking for help. Starfleet would have to oblige, because they've been contacted deliberately, intentionally, and they had to deal with something. And then they actually addressed that, I think, in the first season of Next Generation with Nicole Cox plays a very young alien that is a pen pal with Data through subspace. And she doesn't know that Data is an alien or anything of that nature, but she calls for his help. And what do? Well, they take a look at the planet. They realize, it's being destabilized. Something's going on. The species has hidden around. Well, listen, they called for help. Part of the Prime Directive says that since they were able to contact us and call for help, we can do something. How do we do that to mitigate our influence on fix the planet without them knowing it? And we'll unfortunately have to erase the memories of this little girl who made a friendship with Data, and leave it that way so that they can leave. So that culture survives, but through some sort of a natural disaster on their planet, survives with the help of the Enterprise, but that culture has no knowledge that the Enterprise did anything to help them.
Okay.
And that's kind of how you play around with it. The moment you start putting it into positions where it's like, where it says, oh, we see a tragedy is going to happen and we're not going to help because of the Prime Directive, that's essentially allowing a travesty to
that's the trolley thing, right?
Well, it's not the trolley. It's you're allowing a travesty to occur, and you're excusing yourself of taking of responsibility for whatever result occurs when you know you could have done something.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's the trolley analogy. Essentially, it's like if you're on a trolley or something, and it's like going toward, it's either going to hit 1% or 5 or something like that, and you choose to do nothing. Well, it's going to hit the 5 no matter what.
Yeah.
You can
and if
choose
you choose
to do that
something,
or
it's going to hit the
something.
1.
Yeah, or something like that. It's like abstaining
but
from
in this
choice
case
still
here
causes a problem, or both sides get killed or something.
Well, in this case, you're not on the
But,
trolley.
yeah.
You're the person that could flip the switch, and some writers treat the Prime Directive as, I can't flip the switch anyways because that would be interference. Like that's what they're trying to say,
Right.
and they have to, and they're able to wash their hands clean, and be like,
Well, yeah,
well,
in a
because
way,
they didn't interfere,
I could
it
see
didn't
that.
cause any problems. Yeah.
I could see that being argued for them, though, in a way, like in terms of, well, an asteroid hit our planet so many years ago, and then
Mhm.
we ended up as a result of the asteroid hitting the planet. So if we
Mhm.
stop this asteroid from hitting that planet, are we stunting the future growth of that civilization event, like whatever evolutionary things take place on that planet?
Oh,
Essentially.
absolutely, and that's a good debate. I mean, the thing is that the theory that the premise that I used was that no, it's a recognizable intelligent civilization as opposed to like an animalistic,
Right. Yeah.
no culture, no city, no structure, no infrastructure type of thing. It's like these people have the potential to join us in the stars, but
Right.
they have no idea that this thing is going to come and kill
Coming
them.
their way. Have you seen?
Uh,
I don't watch Rick and Morty, but they did
And I
have
would even
one.
say that the asteroid that hit us and created our species was unnatural too. Like it's
Right,
just
right. Well, like I don't watch Rick and Morty at all, but there was an episode that Angus pointed me to where it's like they have an alien species comes to Earth and they're dinosaurs, and they're like, what? And they're like, yeah, we're coming back to visit our species. Like, oh, the monkeys have grown naked. That's weird. And then they're like, oh, as soon as we left, the asteroids knocked out the rest of their brethren, essentially. So on Earth,
Oh,
that's
right,
what
yeah,
happened. But they went around the galaxy, helping advance planets and stuff, and like helping them out. But it turns out each planet they visited got hit with an asteroid. And it was like, well, wait, why does this happen? Well, like it was like a weird balance, yin and yang kind of effect of like they got so intelligent and so whatever with things that there was a species that got so regressed that all it can do is destroy. And so like it's just a meteor, the species just meteors that just come and crash on planets that they're on or have been to. So like every time they go, they spruce up a thing, make it technologically better, and then it gets destroyed after they leave. It's like I thought that was interesting for
that's a pretty interesting concept. Yeah.
yeah. But this was fun, man. This is a good conversation.
Yeah.
This stuff.
Happy to talk with you, sir.
Heck yeah, man. Heck yeah. Thank you guys for joining us in the chat here. CJ, Runner is in here. Mega Jetty, everybody. Somebody else is in here too. The Science Dictionary, there's a account called Indiana Jones. I was in here for a sec as well. Over here, Indiana Jones. Do you guys like the Indiana Jones movies? Yes, we do.
I like the three of them. Yeah, all three of them.
All three of them, pretty darn good, I would say. But yeah, thank you guys for joining us. And yeah, we're actually going to record a fan film reaction to something. So
Cool.
yeah, heck yeah. We shall see you guys